With an intoxicating mix of beauty, charisma, and charm, Sunny was once the most popular woman in wrestling. She was a true bombshell who injected some much-needed female energy into the mid-90s WWF. At one time, she was all over the Federation's TV shows. But the same confidence and charm that took her to the top of the business also contributed to her downfall. In this video, we're taking a look at exactly why Sunny became one of the most hated women in wrestling. Tammy Sytch grew up in New Jersey and attended the University of Tennessee. That's where she began dating wrestler Chris Candido. Tammy had no plans to enter the wrestling business herself, but she started accompanying Chris to the ring during his time in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Jim Cornette was running the territory at the time, and he saw so much potential in Tammy as an on-screen star that he offered her a 6-month contract. Smoky Mountain soon became a feeder system for the WWF, and that was Tammy and Chris's way into the Federation. In early 1995, the pair made their debut on TV as Sunny and Skip, a pair of obnoxious fitness fanatics. Cornette could already sense that trouble was on the horizon when it came to Tammy. "She worked for me for 2 years. She didn't drink beer. She never took a pill. She was never late. She was never unprofessional. Never argued about a finish. Never questioned a promo. She never complained about her check." But then, we go to the WWF. And that's where the problem started. Because in hindsight, and probably trying to do a little psychological work, she always had a high opinion of herself. And it was validated by her becoming a big star. Sunny and Skip quickly became a staple of WWF television. That was largely thanks to her effortless charisma and how natural she was on the mic. Her wit and confidence made her a natural heel as she played up their gym freak personas to antagonize the fans. It was already clear that Sunny was a standout talent. Sunny and Skip were soon joined by Tom Pritchard, who was now rebranded as Zip, and together they captured the tag team titles on the WrestleMania 12 pre-show. But while their on-screen partnership was going from strength to strength, things weren't so perfect backstage. Tammy and Chris were still in the relationship they had started before entering the wrestling business, but cracks were beginning to show beneath the surface. During this time, Shawn Michaels was going through his notoriously difficult phase backstage, where he was pissing everyone off and simply didn't care. One widely reported incident saw Michaels get involved in a violent altercation with a soldier at a bar. After trying to flirt with the soldier's girlfriend, the two men got into a fight, and Michaels was reportedly beaten up. Hunter Hearst Helmsley, HHH, stepped in to help Shawn and accompanied him to the emergency room. This would mark the beginning of their affair. Tammy later admitted, "I was in love with Shawn Michaels when I was 13 years old. So now, being a coworker and in the same locker room as him, I couldn't help but admire him up close and personal. He was always very nice to me, much different from how he treated the boys, with the exception of the clique. He was extremely charming, and even more handsome and attractive than he was back when I was 13. Tammy and Shawn didn't bother keeping their affair a secret. In fact, they flaunted it right under Chris's nose. In her book, Tammy wrote that she would be intimate with Michaels multiple times a night backstage, while his buddies in the clique took turns standing guard outside the locker room. According to Bruce Pritchard on his podcast, Chris was well aware of the affair. He was definitely internally battling it constantly, on a daily basis. Jesus Christ, being there, you felt horrible for him because you wanted to shake him. He could have walked away from her and walked away from the situation. He knew. He definitely knew. And it ate him up. The fact that he did nothing made people stop feeling sorry for him. It got to the point where they were thinking, okay, dumbass. If you're not going to do anything, if you're going to let this little girl run all over you and do this shit in your face, you don't deserve anyone's sympathy because you're letting it happen and you're not doing anything about it. Doing nothing only made the situation worse for Candido, and it changed the way the guys in the locker room looked at him. Eventually, the attitude towards Sunny and Shawn became, well, the boyfriend doesn't care, so why should we? It's no surprise that Shawn Michaels didn't think twice about Candido during the affair, given his terrible attitude at the time. But it really speaks volumes about Tammy's character. She later claimed to have been intimate with other wrestlers in the locker room too. In a 2012 Shoot interview, she admitted to sleeping with Davey Boy Smith after her fling with Michaels ended. Considering that Smith was married to Diana Hart at the time, his daughter, Georgia Smith, strongly refuted those allegations. There were also rumors linking Tammy to Bret Hart, although Bret has always denied it. That story was likely started by Shawn Michaels himself after his infamous Sunny Days promo on Raw in 1997, where he insinuated that Bret and Tammy were having an affair. Bret's wife was reportedly furious when she heard those comments live on TV, but Tammy never denied the accusations. To her, it didn't really matter, because she was on the rise. By this point, she was so popular with the fans that Vince McMahon tried to capitalize on her popularity in every way possible. She had expanded her managing duties and was hosting several WWF TV shows. She was even breaking into the mainstream, making appearances on MTV and talk shows. Outwardly, it seemed like the sky was the limit. But backstage, things were starting to fall apart. Tammy was increasingly disliked by several people in the locker room, including Bill Moody, better known as Paul Bearer, had a soft spot for Chris Candido and took great offense at how Tammy was treating him. Other people backstage were getting sick of her loud mouth and her ego, which seemed to be running wild, getting bigger and bigger every time she appeared on TV. On top of that, she had allegedly developed a substance abuse problem, which caused her to become increasingly sloppy. She was showing up late for work, and in some cases, not showing up at all. There was now a new blonde bombshell in the WWF, Rena, who was better known as Sable. To say that Sunny felt threatened by Sable would be an understatement. Sunny was the first, but man, all of a sudden, the newer model came along. I think it was pretty much 99.5% jealousy. Sable was the hottest thing, and she was blowing Sunny out of the water in terms of merchandise sales and everything else. So, all of a sudden, there's competition. There's a new, hotter star in town, and you've got Sunny, who's been here for a few years, showing up late, not being coherent a lot of the time, and dealing with all of that other baggage. Meanwhile, Rena was new, willing to do anything, and getting massive reactions every time she walked out. But the tension between the women wouldn't matter for much longer, because Tammy's drug abuse had spiraled out of control. By the summer of 1998, she had repeatedly no-showed events and was lying to cover her tracks. On one occasion, it was reported that she told Linda McMahon that she had miscarried a baby, but she couldn't provide any medical documentation to back up her claim. When WWF officials asked her to enter rehab, she refused. They had no choice but to fire her. That marked the end of Tammy's time in the WWF, and her life fell into a deep downward spiral. Just 4 days after she was fired, she appeared for ECW, helping Candido defeat Lance Storm. But then, in December 1999, Paul Heyman found her passed out in a locker room backstage and fired her. Tammy and Chris then appeared in WCW for a few months in 2000. However, they both suddenly disappeared from TV without explanation. Rumors later surfaced that Kimberly Page had allegedly found drugs on Tammy backstage in the women's locker room, so she was let go from WCW too. In 2005, Chris tragically passed away. He was in the hospital after getting injured during a match. While there, he contracted acute pneumonia. Sadly, he died shortly after due to complications. A documentary was produced to reflect on Chris's life, featuring interviews with many of his peers. However, Tammy was not invited to participate. She lashed out at anyone who would listen, directing her anger at Chris's grieving family. Tammy later got into a relationship with a New Jersey police officer. It apparently ended on bad terms. Then, in a strange turn of events, she turned to New Jack, the infamous former ECW wrestler, known for being an actual maniac. He claimed that Tammy approached him and asked him to murder her ex-lover. He declined. As her substance abuse problem worsened, Tammy started running out of money, so she starred in a porn movie and began hustling her remaining fans. Who can forget the absolute cringe fest at a convention where she was charging desperate men a premium to get in bed with her for a photo? Then there was the GoFundMe page she set up, supposedly for medical expenses. She also appeared in a string of shoot interviews, talking trash about literally everyone she had ever worked with. Eventually, it was her substance abuse that completely destroyed her life. Over the course of 10 years, from 2012 onwards, she was arrested multiple times for DUI, disorderly conduct, third-degree burglary, unlawful possession of a weapon, and a string of other offenses.